you people, they were the devil's.
Good afternoon from Mickey and from me from Castle Goring. Mickey's taking a break from those whuppies who are growing like Topsy. And she is perpetually hungry now, aren't you, baby girl? Because you need to come up with all sorts of milky boos to give to the whuppies. So, without further ado, and with Mickey's permission, I'm going to plunge right in. Lizzie Nunez says, Lady C, I just read that Harry will not be attending Prince Philip's memorial service in April, but big block capitals will be attending the Invictus Games in the Netherlands. I thought he was afraid of not having appropriate security. Several question marks, and I think it's a face, but I'm not very good on all these symbols, I've got to tell you. So it would actually be better to not post symbols with me because I'm not really sure what most of them mean. I also have to mention the video which shows Harry announcing his attendance, dressed all big block capitals in orange, right down to a fedora and sunglasses. And then another funny symbol, yellow, that looks like a wolf, something anyway, which makes him look like a clown. Hasn't he realized that he is becoming a laughing stock? I truly feel bad for the royal family having to watch the downfall of H. I wonder if H will one day look back at all these videos and feel horrified. Well, there's also another question on the same subject from Maz. So if I may, I'm going to read them both and then just cover the terrain as if it were one question. Lady C, you will chuckle when you see what stunt H has pulled now. I did chuckle. I thought if there was a prize for lack of dignity, Harry would win hands down. If there was a prize for jackass of the decade, Harry would win hands down. He is promoting the Invictus Games, but it's difficult to take him seriously when he reveals himself dressed top to toe in orange attire, similar to the attire an inmate wears. In fact, that's all that is missing from his clothes, the word inmate. I think you mean prison inmate, because I gather either orange or tangerine is the colour of inmates in the US. I would also love to know your views regarding Harry not attending Prince Philip's memorial service due to security issues, when in fact Harry would be on royal business, therefore he and all the royals in attendance will have security. That's the protocol. Well, I'm going to start with this point first and work my way back to the beginning of the first question and then work my way down. Harry is such, well, as Meghan said about herself, and really, Harry is just such a, I'm not going to use the word actually. I'm not going to open myself up to the possibility of anything untoward. Let's put it this way. Harry has taken pretense and pretentiousness to the level of artistry. It is utter rubbish. Of course, Harry will have protection when he is with the royals. They all do. And you know, this is really nothing short of blackmail. It really is nothing short of blackmail. And my understanding is that Harry and Meghan have hyper-diaper, super-duper blotted their copy with the royal family and the royal institution. And you can listen to anything you want from Sunshine Sacks. There is no rapprochement. The family and the government and the palace are taking the fact very seriously that Harry and Meghan have been making anti-British comments, anti-governmental comments. You know, remember last week about the vaccine? Particularly lambasting the British government and doing it in the crassest, crudest, and may I say the most stupid way possible, because they were saying that the pharmaceutical companies should simply waive all their patents so that people in the third world will be spared the possibility of getting coronavirus. Well, I mean, first of all, how dare they interfere with governmental policy, and not only governmental policy, but actual statute, patent law. And how dare they play the race card yet again and the pity fest. I'm going to tell you something that some of you might not know, but I'm sure most of you already know. The category of person who is refusing to take the vaccine is multifaceted. You have very intelligent people, very aware, health-aware people. You have, let me say, I've had my 3 shots, so I'm not anti-vax. But it goes from very well-educated people to really very ignorant people. And the fact of the matter is that a large percentage of the population that is of colour, not only here, but all over the world, doesn't want to take the vaccine. They have had to destroy millions of doses because of people refusing to take the vaccine. When I was coming up for my 2nd shot, I had transferred from the surgery in London to the surgery in the country. But because they knew me in London and they know that I am going to be sympathetic to their stance, they phoned me up and asked me to come into London to get my 2nd vaccine, because they said they needed to boost their numbers because people of colour in the community were refusing to get the vaccine. So it's not, as Meghan and Harry would like you to believe, rich, awful white people against poor black people. I mean, their irresponsibility, their race baiting, their hatefulness, their irresponsibility is causing a great deal of concern and hardening positions against them. So, to revert back to the top of the question, yes, Harry can't come to England where he's going to be afforded royal protection because he's trying to manipulate the situation. He's aggressively and nastily and viciously trying to prove a point. He's trying to get back his status of internationally protected person. And he will play any dirty trick in the book, and is doing so to get it. Let's see if he succeeds. But he's perfectly safe in the Netherlands, just as how he was safe in Texas at a rodeo where everybody packs a gun. But he's not safe in Britain. I mean, the total codswallop is just, I mean, don't you feel as if you're swimming in a sea of feces, all of which has been expelled by both Meghan and Harry? I mean, they are feces shooters of the highest order. I will make the point, Harry dressed all in orange shows he's a jerk, shows he has no dignity, shows he's pathetic and will do anything to get and keep attention. But the House of Orange is the royal house of the Netherlands. I don't think he was making an allusion to that for 1 second. Or if he was, it was an impertinent allusion along the lines of roasting chicken, waffles, and all those lovely descriptions that do 2 fingers to civilized, well-educated, well-behaved people. The sort of, sorry, every now and then I get sniffles. The sort of behaviour that people who sniffle for another reason are prone to. Does he realise he's become a laughing stock? I gather not. I gather he thinks he's cool. And I think, sorry, my nose is not running. It's just sniffles for days. Oh, I gather that he has the sort of contemptuous sense of humour that people who love to speak about roasting chicken and waffles and making waffles and Granny giving them implements to make waffles. And I'm not so clever and I'm not just making a complete ass of everybody. Oh, maybe of myself, but I don't realise it because I have no self-awareness. Well, of course the royal family is upset. Nobody likes to see the disintegration of a loved one, or should I say, a loved one who was formerly cherished and is quickly working his way out of banks of affection. Now, let's see what else. The memorial service. Of course he's not coming to the memorial service. Why would he come to the memorial service? Why would he honour the grandfather that he helped to make, or ensured, actually would be a better word, his last days on earth would be coloured by Harry and Meghan's colour prejudice, colour antics, class prejudice, class antics, disgusting conduct, and plethora of lies and treachery, as we all witnessed in Oprah. Sorry, I was just reminiscing of some of Meghan's movements when she was being interviewed by Oprah. Poor darling, she's obviously prone to colds. He comes across as an idiot because he is an idiot. But you can be a nice idiot. He's not a nice idiot. He is a vicious, treacherous person who has clearly no respect or regard for the nation that raised him up from birth and raised him from birth at a great height. And now he's kicking so ignominiously. This is a display of craven and disgusting, reprehensible behavior, in my opinion. And who doesn't agree with me is entitled to disagree with me. Who thinks that it's perfectly okay for a prince of the United Kingdom to sue his grandmother's government, to try to strip away the protection that has been laid down so that decisions can be taken and protect the decision makers? He wants to strip away all of their privacy. Who gets up and announces to the world that British companies that have channeled billions into research should just give up their patents because Harry and Meghan want them to. What about the shareholders? And also the vaccines that are going everywhere. Half of them aren't being taken up, and that's a figurative half. The people won't take them up. So why aren't they addressing that aspect of the question? Robin Curl says, "Hello, Lady C. I love your jewellery. Thank you. It's always exciting to see what you're going to be wearing. Thank you very much. In regards to Harry's military service, it is my understanding that they kept him off the front lines and hidden away when there was danger. Do you know if that's a true statement? Hello to the dogs. What kind of dogs are they? They are Cavalier King Charles Spaniels." Mickey, somebody's saying hello to you. His name is Robin Curl. Yes, it's absolutely true. Harry and most of the royals, when they are serving close to the British throne, are kept out of the line of fire. The previous Prince of Wales used to agitate during the First World War to go to the front lines and face danger. He was never allowed to do it. Prince Philip, because he was a prince of Greece and Denmark, during the war was allowed to face danger and did, and proved himself to be a hero, as indeed did his son Prince Andrew, who was number 2. So he wasn't number 1, he was number 2, and the Queen and Prince Philip and Prince Andrew decided during the Falklands War that Andrew, as a serving officer, would be exposed to danger. The Queen, Prince Philip, and Prince Andrew were as one with this. Harry, because they didn't want him being kidnapped. They never want royals to be kidnapped. And you see, had Prince Andrew been exposed to danger and had a negative outcome, because he was a helicopter pilot, he would have been killed. That was okay, believe it or not. What was not going to be okay was for him to be captured. And nobody wanted Harry to be captured by the Taliban. For that reason, he was ring-fenced. It's all there in black and white. It's a matter of his record. Harry was never exposed to danger where he could be kidnapped. Once or twice, he, as a gunner, did take part in operations. And the way Harry has spoken about the operations that he took part in is as if it had been a game. You know, that he was playing on a computer, when in fact the targets were living, breathing people. Often, not always, but often in war, civilians. But that was perfectly okay because they were only Afghanistanis. Do we begin to see an element of double standards here that is deeply discomforting? And also, do we begin to see an attitude going off what Harry said about when he was targeting people, that it was almost fun? I mean, maybe I misunderstood what he was saying, and if I did, I apologize profusely. But my understanding of what he was saying was that it was exactly like a video game, ha ha ha! And that was the end of it. Not that he then made the next step to, these are living, breathing people, and really, what are we doing here? And why are we here? And should we be here? None of that came into the equation. So, very pathetic. N. Nekrasova says, is it possible Thomas Markle isn't Meghan's father biologically? Or perhaps she grew up questioning it, and some of Thomas's family and even friends speculated about it, and she overheard. Thanks for always being interesting, classy, with a capital K. Oh dear, since when did I become Megsy Baby? Golly gee, I'm really classy. Gosh, Mickey, come on, lick me. Witty and so entertaining. Thank you very much. You are lovely in every way. Madame Nekrasova, thank you. I have heard rumors, but I have no doubt they are completely untrue, that there is the possibility that Doria might actually have been impregnated by someone other than Thomas, and that he was a man of colour. Well, I don't believe it. Meghan does not look as if she is the product of two people of colour. Also, she looks enough like the other Markles for there to be, in my mind at least, little doubt that she is definitely Thomas Markle's child. He certainly thinks so. The other members of the family have always thought so. I think it's just an unpleasant and disagreeable rumour, really. And if she heard anything about it, I doubt very much that it would have made a scrap of difference, because she accepted that she was Thomas Markle's adored baby girl. Sharon Smith says, Lady C, Thomas Markle just praised you as brilliant on his new YouTube channel. He said you, Taz, P. Dina and Sumi have inspired him to join these wonderful people. He's teaming up with Carl Larson, the paparazzi photographer, whom he credits with originally destroying his life, but then eventually coming back to save him. His new channel is called Remarkable Friends. Have I seen it? Yes, I have. Several people told me about it. I looked at it. I thought it was very interesting. I have made it very clear in the last 2 years that I have a great deal of time for Thomas Markle Sr. I think he has been terribly, terribly, heartfeltedly wronged by his vicious, nasty, ungrateful gonorrhean, which is a combination of Regan and gonorrhea. I can only imagine the full extent of the anguish that he has endured because of her treachery and her inhumanity, because, in my opinion, her conduct towards her father has been totally, totally inhumane. And it has led me to conclude that we are dealing with a sociopath as well as a narcissist. And I am not the only person who has come to that conclusion. I have been led to that conclusion by medical professionals, because Meghan's conduct is that of a true sociopath as well as a narcissist. I would recommend to everybody that they look at Thomas Markle's channel. He is quite rightly supporting his daughter Samantha, because his other daughter Meghan has been on a crusade to destroy the reputation of the Markle family, just as how she and Harry have been on a crusade to not only damage the reputation of the British royal family, but now to damage the well-being and regard in which the British government is held. These are deeply, deeply, I don't think I can convey to what extent these are deeply unsettling and very destructive and really vicious and nasty issues, and conduct of this nature is truly awful. There is no excuse for it. I don't care how much stuff you put up your nose, up your arm, in your groin, between your toes, down your throat, or up the orifice from which I am sitting and you normally spew forth your poison. It is inexcusable. It is unacceptable. There is no circumstance upon which behavior of this kind can be regarded as creditable. I would recommend that anybody who has any interest in the subject look at Thomas Markle's channel, because he has been goaded into a situation by his cruel, unfeeling, ungrateful, vicious, vitriolic, conniving, manipulative, and nasty daughter. She has done everything she can possibly think of to destroy his reputation and his well-being. I mean, even if the man had been an appalling father, no self-respecting child would treat him so appallingly and do so publicly. The whole thing is a total disgrace, and I cannot emphasize how completely shocking I find it. Cindy Taylor says, Lady C, did you see the article in BuzzFeed News about anti-Meghan YouTubers? They actually name you and Yankee Wally, and I wanted to know your opinion on this article. It really defames Samantha as well. I just don't know what to think. Then various symbols, including hearts and crosses, red crosses, squares with white circles, funny face things, from Aspen, Colorado. Cindy Taylor, I think I've made it clear before, I do not normally look at other YouTube channels. I like to maintain a degree of impartiality and autonomy and independence, and it would not be possible to do so if I were looking at other channels. I'm not going to be influenced by anybody. I am going to approach people who genuinely are in the know, who aren't speculating, and I am then going to convey what I regard as appropriate on this channel. The only way I can do that and make sure that I am not influenced by other people on YouTube is to not watch. I make an exception with Thomas Markle, because Thomas Markle is Meghan's father. And I know members of the Markle family, and I know enough about Thomas Markle to know how terribly, terribly wronged he has been. He's not speculating. He is the participant, so it's safe to listen to him. But these other people that you're mentioning, BuzzFeed News, about anti-Meghan YouTubers, they can say whatever they wish. It's of no consequence where I'm concerned. They can say anything as long as it's not defamatory. I couldn't care less. I don't know if they're pro or anti, but either way, I cannot invest in their sort of relay, because to do so would be to compromise my impartiality. So I hope I've made that clear. So I haven't seen, I'm not going to be looking, and I don't really care what they're saying. Independent Thinker says, there was a huge spread in this week's Sunday Times about Evgeny Lebedev. Do you know him? If you do, can you tell us what he's like and whether he really can be regarded as a threat to the nation's security? Well, yes, there was a huge spread in this week's Sunday Times about Evgeny. I do know him slightly. I've known him since he was a teenager. I first met him at one of Andy Wong's parties. That must have been in the late 90s, early noughties, as they call it. I don't like that expression, but it makes it easier. He is extremely ambitious. He's extremely successful. He's an operator. He is an operator. Do I think he's a threat to national security? No, I don't. His father, Alexander, who I've come across as well, used to be the head of the KGB in London when the Soviet Union existed, then became a billionaire, one of the oligarchs, after the downfall. If I remember correctly, he was one of Yeltsin's men. I could be wrong there because we're going back so far. Evgeny's perfectly pleasant and rarely weird, I've got to tell you. He has no real conversation. He collects people. He's actually not my sort of person. I like warmth, and Evgeny has never been warm. He's very aloof, he's very studied. I don't like studied people, I like natural people. He's very lavish, and I certainly like sumptuousness, but I like aristocratic sumptuousness. I don't really like nouveau sumptuousness, you know. I mean, I don't need people to shove caviar down my throat. I'm perfectly happy to get it off the table, so to speak. He, with his father, did the route to influence, buying newspapers. They bought the Independent, which is relatively left-wing, and they bought the Evening Standard, which used to belong to my sister-in-law, Jeannie Campbell's grandfather, and then uncle, Lord Beaverbrook, and Sir Max Aitken, who was her mother's brother. He was the second Lord Beaverbrook, but renounced the title. So they owned the Evening Standard, they owned the Daily Express, they owned the Sunday Express, and a whole host of other newspapers, regional, national, blah, blah, blah. And they sold the Evening Standard. But there were two evening papers in the 70s, the Evening Standard and the Evening News. And if I remember correctly, the Evening News was owned by Associated Newspapers. And then they both amalgamated in the form of the Evening Standard, bought by Associated eventually, and then now handed over to Evgeny. First of all, I think his father owned it, and then he was gifted it, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I was told at the time. And if it wasn't formal, it was certainly informal. They are rank social climbers, and they love collecting big names. That's what they are all about. They're perfectly pleasant. Do they like influence, and do they influence peddle? Yes, but they're not influence peddling against the interest of this country. So I would have said that Evgeny is absolutely no threat whatsoever to national security. But, you know, spooks are always suspicious, and they always think the worst of everybody. And maybe sometimes that's not a bad thing. But I do think that we need to watch against too much Russophobia, because the Russian people and the Russian nation, and when I say nation, I mean in much the same way, the British nation is not the same thing as the British government, and the Russian nation is not the same thing as the Russian government. And I find it deeply disturbing to hear that proper symphony orchestras cancel Tchaikovsky because he was Russian. I mean, it's unbelievable. And universities are cancelling Dostoevsky because he was Russian. One of the greatest 19th century composers and one of the greatest 19th century writers. They are being cancelled because they're Russian. What about the quality of the music? What about the quality of the writing? And now speaking about Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky was exiled for years. There's a theory that Tchaikovsky was made to commit suicide as punishment for bad behaviour. And these are being cancelled. So I think we don't want to get too caught up in Russophobia. You know, in the First World War, people would kick Dachshunds in the street because a Dachshund dog has a German name. Now, are we going to have a repetition of this insanity? So, I do hope they stop the Russo baiting because it's completely uncalled for. The soldiers in an army have to take orders. If they don't take orders, and when I say orders, I mean regular military orders, they are court-martialed and shot. Do we seriously want every young man in the Russian army to be shot? Do we seriously want a rank social climber like Evgeny Lebedev to be hounded out when he's done nothing wrong just because of his nationality and this nonsense about national security? I'm sorry, he owns a newspaper. George Osborne, the former Chancellor, was running the newspaper. I mean, you know, let's get a sense of proportion here. Katina says, Lady C, I'm glad to hear your sniffles are mostly better. You might have noticed, my dear, that by and large my sniffles only alight when my nose tickles at certain times, and usually when there are triggers, external triggers that make my sniffles come and go. So don't worry, they're not harmful. Are you a fan of Julian Fellowes? And if so, have you seen the new show, The Gilded Age? Would love to hear what you think of it. Christine Baranski's character reminds me of an American version of you. Obviously, if you lived back then. No nonsense and always straight to the heart of the matter. Thank you very much. Yes, I have been looking at it. Julian Fellowes and I go back to the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the late 70s, but I think it's the early 80s. And I'm very fond of Julian, and I exult in his success. He deserves it richly. He's worked for it, and he deserves it. And I absolutely love The Gilded Age. I have an opinion about the show. I think he has done a slight sort of Romana Clay about Alva, William K. Vanderbilt and Consuelo. Because, of course, I was very friendly with Consuelo's granddaughter and main heiress, Lady Sarah Spencer Churchill. And in fact, I have hair that I have been given, items that belong to Consuelo, towels that belonged to William K. Vanderbilt, that sort of thing. And given to me some of the stuff was given to me by Sarah and others were given to me by Elaine Kelly Trebek, who was a great, great friend of Sarah's as well. And Sarah gave her a whole load of stuff, and some of which she's given to me. Because, you know, we go all the way back to the early 70s. And I think that the Russells are the William K. Vanderbilts, and I see the parallels. I think it's very well done. I understood that it's, you know, a story of that complexity with that many characters. The first episode was really setting the stage, and people nowadays don't seem to understand that you always need to set the stage before you actually have the story come to fruition. And they expect you to plunge right in without introducing the characters and the complexity, etc. I think he's done a very good job. I'm loving every minute of it. I think it's beautifully photographed. I know some people say that his dialogue it moves the story along. Excuse me, that's what dialogue is supposed to do. Dialogue is supposed to move the story along. It's not supposed to be exactly what was said, unless you can move the story along by saying exactly what would have been said. Otherwise, you need to move the story along. That's what plays are all about. Movies, writing. It's, you know, that people criticize things thinking they're criticizing a negative. They're criticizing a reality. The Christine Baranski character, well, I would hope I have rather more humour than she does. But yes, she does go to the heart of the matter, and she's no nonsense. Julian likes women who are strong, who are decisive, who go right to the heart of the matter, and who have no nonsense about them. I also think that the Christine Baranski character is rather more snobbish than I would ever have wanted to be. Even when I was young and slightly misguided, I was never really a snob. Never. And I actually don't really like snobs. And in fact, the Christine Baranski character is always trying to keep a ring fence around her world. And that was one of the reasons why I couldn't wait to leave Jamaica and leave my family, because we were occupying a very restrictive world where, I mean, my father, for instance, wouldn't allow us to go to parties if he didn't know the parents and grandparents of the people who were having the party, and all grandparents, parents or grandparents. Even if it was a household name, he wouldn't allow it. I found that sort of thing deeply oppressive and claustrophobic, and I absolutely hated it. And in fact, one of my great friends in my 20s, we loosened the ties of friendship because I found her very restrictive. And indeed, various members of my family who I would think, oh God, you know, I mean, please, let in some new people, you know. Does everybody have to have provenance? I mean, it's fine if they don't have any provenance as long as they are nice people, interesting, entertaining, whatever. So I have actually always been dead against the restrictiveness that goes along with snobbishness. And I have purposely led a life that has let in all sorts of people into my life. And I actually sponsored my mechanic for Royal Ascot. I thought, why not? He's a lovely man. He's now very successful. He's married to a lovely girl. They have a lovely child. He's moved up in the world. And I didn't care that he started as a poor mechanic. I sponsored him for Royal Ascot. So I think that should tell you that with Christine Baranski character and I don't have that much in common, except maybe with our no-nonsense and going right to the heart of the matter. And I would recommend anybody who wants to look at something really entertaining looks at the Gilded Age. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell. Please remember to keep the questions coming in. And again, look at Thomas Markle's channel. It's well worth seeing. God bless and goodbye.